Hi there, I'm Dan McGowan. I'm a clean comedian with a passion for raising the bar on clean comedy. This podcast is all about clean comedy, and I'll be interviewing clean comedians and entertainers, and we'll find out what makes them tick, or what ticks them off. So if you want to learn more about clean comedy, stick around, because this is just pure laughs. Well, my guest today is Bryan Gilles. He is a family-friendly, for the most part, entertainer. He's a magician, and we're going to talk about that. And he actually has done a lot of performing all around local shows. He's been in Las Vegas. He grew up kind of under the banner of being a magician, and he'll talk a little bit about that. Anyway, Bryan, it's great to have you on the show today. Thanks for taking some time to share with us your insights on what it's like doing what you do as a magician and working, for the most part, clean. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I'm honored to be here. Doing great. I'm out in my workshop, and it is a nice, brisk 50 degrees out here, so I'm wide awake and ready for this.
Oh, that's good. Now, your workshop, is this like the place where you like build all your magic tricks and illusions and all that?
Yeah, so we literally call this the house that magic built. And that's exactly what it is. My wife and I have kind of a strict rule where the magic pays for the magic. And I consult for other magicians all over. And just right here off in this little farm in Red Bluff, a lot of illusions you might have seen on TV have come out of this little workshop. So
really? So you've actually worked as a consultant for other magicians?
Yeah. Currently I've got roughly, I'd say 5 or 6 usual guys that I work with. That keep coming back to me. Apparently they like me. And, we collaborate on ideas and I try to bring those ideas to life and, they seem to like it. So
now, are these tricks something that if somebody, I'm assuming they pay you for your effort, and if they do, then do they own that, or can you do that trick as well?
It kind of varies, in the world of magic. There's a lot of big egos and there's a lot of, creativity. And a lot of the stuff is pretty open game. None of it's real new ideas. There's little pieces here and there that might be new. And unless a client says, hey, let's keep this exclusive, then a lot of times I won't delve into it with other clients. Just kind of keeping the exclusivity, with the client. So, yeah.
Well, I would think that working in that, it's kind of like with stand-up. Unfortunately, there are comedians who will steal jokes from other comedians, and it's really, really difficult to curtail that, until you hear it. And then when they come off stage, hey, buddy, that's my joke.
Yeah.
So, but I would imagine with magic, like you just said, there's a lot of illusions that are probably very similar. And then maybe you put your own unique twist on them. Is that what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of my stuff, I come behind a lot of great builders, my father being one of them. And I have a very particular style. So other guys that know my work, they'll see it and they know, oh, that's a Bryan Gilles piece, and
yeah.
I kind of put my little flair on everything that I do. And
that's cool. Yeah. So talk about that. We were talking off air, but talk about your dad and you said he was a gospel magician or musician?
Yeah, magician. So it's kind of funny because the two almost clash. I grew up in a very strict Southern Baptist family, and the thought of even performing with cards in the church was kind of a no-no. But
well, Bryan, I just want you to know, enjoy hell. That's where you're headed. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of taboo to bring magic into the church, but a lot of guys did it. My dad flew under the banner of Andre Cole with Campus Crusade, and he helped put together my father's tour. I was 6 years old. We did 27 states in 7 months. And we were in, from the things I remember, we performed in churches, we performed in high school gymnasiums, and his whole show was about bringing God back into the country and putting him, number one in our lives. Yeah. And he used magic as the vehicle to kind of teach different parables in the Bible. And
you know what? I love that because, I guess if you're a Christian singer, or maybe a Christian actor who does one-man plays or something. Maybe that's the same thing I'm about to say, but I like the idea of using something as creative as magic to tell a story that is hopefully gospel-oriented, gospel-focused, so that those audience members can, I don't know, go a little deeper with that and maybe find out something they didn't think about before, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that, we remember more of what we see than what we hear. And so when you tie the two together, you put a story or some scripture, and then you make it visual. It kind of has a tendency to stick to the brain a little bit more and help drive the message home a little easier.
I like that. Now you were saying talking about your dad. You were saying we would do shows. Were you performing with him when you were a child?
Yeah. So I took to the stage at 5 years old. I started.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I guess you could say my magic career began at 5.
Wow.
Our whole family, it was a family show. My mom sewed all the costumes, and she was my dad's lead assistant. And then my older sister and I, and even my little sister at the time was 3. And so she was a part of the show as well. And it was a family affair. We were like the Partridge Family on the road,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. My folks were nightclub entertainers, but because I was a kid and I couldn't get into the nightclub, I couldn't really perform with them. They were a duo or whatever.
Right.
So I come from a similar kind of a background, except I wasn't up on stage, smoking and drinking and doing all these blues songs or whatever. Right. I was at home with my Shirley Temple enjoying that. So yeah. Well, that's amazing. So you've been at this a while.
Yeah. Actually, I won my first award at 5 years old in Winona Lake, Indiana. We closed out the Fellowship of Christian Magicians conference. Every year they host a conference for all these Christian entertainers, be it a ventriloquist, mimes, all the above. And that year, my dad was the final act, and my sister and I competed. We did a dove act and had like manipulation stuff with it, with cards and records and silks and all the above. And so we took first place in our age bracket, which they call the PV division. Nice. And that was the start of it, man. So
you weren't really competing against him because he was in a different division.
Right. Yep.
Because that would have made like Thanksgiving really awkward.
Yeah.
Like you guys, good job winning, right. Pass the turkey.
Absolutely.
So you have done this for a long time, and have you always tended to work clean family towards that bent?
I kind of have a funny rule. And as you know, writing comedy, is it going to be funny to the audience if I find it funny, And the one thing I always kind of think is, if my mom came to the show, would she be proud of me? And I know it's kind of silly at 44 to think that way, but my mom, I might be 44, but let me tell you, she could still twist my ear and give me the what for,
That's good. So she's still with us, obviously. Is your dad still with us?
Lost my dad to cancer, going on 15 years this next year. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, I know that you have. I've seen you perform in a couple of like coffee houses and wineries and so forth. What kind of places do you feel? I mean, I think I know what you're going to say to this. I was going to say, where do you like performing? And you'll say anywhere,
yes,
anywhere
absolutely.
They'll pay me. But are there places you prefer more than others to perform?
I tend to find I like the places where there's a bunch of different ages. I love performing for adults because we're dumb. And I say that with tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to fool a kid than it is an adult because adults, we have such mechanical minds where, I might be double lifting a card, and in magic, that means just having 2 cards and you're holding it up as one. And whereas a little kid will say, oh, he's holding 2 cards, an adult's going, well, there's a gear and it levers this up and that thing pushes out of his sleeve, and they just over
like they're trying to make it more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
Have you always felt that that's true? That in the many years you've done this, have you always felt that kids were kind of quicker on the trigger to figure things out?
Absolutely. And it's kind of funny. I love kids. I've got 3 of my own, but I don't like performing for kids, to be honest with you. But it's a love-hate relationship. I mean, I say that, but I secretly deep down, I do love performing for kids. because as a performer, especially in magic, we kind of have this unwritten law of bringing back childlike wonder, and so to see the looks on their faces, that's rewarding. And I wish I could say that's why I do it, but in all honesty, if it puts food on the table and it's something I'm passionate about, the two are great things.
Well, I really like what you said kind of at the outset, that your magic needs to pay for the magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any gigs you get as a magician, hopefully you can funnel that money back into whatever, your next great trick or prop or whatever it is you need.
Yeah, as I sit out here, I'm looking back. I have an office that's partially insulated and partially drywalled, and I'm just waiting for the next gig to finish it.
That's good. Yeah. You have to go out and buy more rabbits and hats and scarves and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you think? What do you think is a big misconception people have with magic? Is that a fair question to ask?
Oh yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I can't tell you how many vacation Bible schools that I've gone in and I've performed, and I get pulled aside as I'm loading all my equipment back out in the car, and they question my faith because of what I do. And it kind of hurts, because
they question your faith because you are doing magic.
Yeah, because magic kind of has a bad rap amongst the churchgoers. There's a fine line between being a deceiver and then practicing deception. And so,
well, yeah, and I'm sure you've come across this. I remember I grew up in LA, and I remember going at least once, maybe I went twice, to the Magic Castle.
Yeah,
and and my wife and I went, and I remember both of us thinking, "Wow, it feels like there's a lot of quote unquote black magic stuff taking place, like a little bit,
right."
Devilish or whatever,
Yeah.
Almost bordering on witchcraft. It wasn't just sleight of hand or coin tricks or whatever.
Right.
And I'm smart enough, and I do this as an entertainer, so I'm smart enough to know that that's not all of magic. Not all of magic is like that,
Right. Right.
But is that what you're talking about? Like they would kind of liken you to that and then pull you aside and question your faith? How dare you do a card trick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism in magic, and there's a very because spiritualism in magic,
right,
like reading people's minds and all that stuff, kind of borderlines the whole. Again, tongue in cheek, I'll say the black magic, the dark magic, and
right.
I mean a lot of the technique is as simple as directing someone towards the end goal of, I'm going to read your mind and getting information out of them without the audience knowing. I think when it comes down to performing that stuff, am I performing it as, I have a spiritualist side of me that can do that? Am I a medium? And that's definitely flirting with that darker area.
Well, I've seen you in real life, and you're really more of a large.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're a medium. But,
yeah.
Well, you're right about that because, I'm not going to give any secrets away here, I don't think, but a lot of people who do these mind reading acts, there are methods you use to help the audience member to kind of, I think you said, guide them towards an answer. And it probably doesn't always work the right way, right? I mean, maybe the answers that you want to get, they don't arrive for whatever reason.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And look at it like a hypnotism, I mean,
right.
As you're driving home from work and you get to your house and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't remember being at this place at this time and all that. And you get hypnotized on the road, but it doesn't mean that you're practicing witchcraft, so.
No, it just means you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're just like this adult that can't, keep track of where you are.
Right.
But that's very interesting. So has that happened a lot to you where a church audience or somebody in a church audience pulls you aside, or is that
I think in modern day, because there's so much exposure to that kind of stuff on TV, with shows like The Masked Magician and different outlets like that, I think it kind of dilutes the waters a little bit. And I don't see as much pushback on it as I did when I was younger. I remember people coming up and shouting at my father after a show, and how can you call yourself a man of God and do this, and so it's kind of we just live in a different
and you know what, I've received the same kind of thing. There's early on, because I'm a Christian, early on when I was doing some jokes in my routine, I thought they were funny. I didn't think they were making fun of Jesus.
Right.
But they definitely were kind of poking fun at Christianity, but in a, I like how you said tongue in cheek earlier, nothing to slam my faith.
Right.
But I had a few times when people would come pull me aside and say, I can't believe you did that joke. And I find it offensive. And,
right.
There's at least a couple of jokes that I just have stopped doing because of that. Why ruffle the feathers if I don't need to?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we live in the era of like John Crist and Tim Hawkins and, Bob Smiley and all these guys that point out all the, the tight tie Christian and the nuances and the funny stuff that we all kind of grew up with. And now we can kind of stand back and laugh at it collectively and go, you know what? Yeah, I guess we kind of all do that,
I've really been trying to redirect what I do. And in fact, that's kind of one of my goals for 2025 is to become more of an encourager, if that's possible, through my comedy,
Absolutely.
Coming up with material that everybody can deal with and, relate to or whatever, but without, frankly, I do get kind of tired of the slamming of Christianity, even if it's done tongue in cheek, because sometimes that line, you go right to that edge. And if there's anybody in the audience who might be struggling with whether or not they should believe, now you've given them a reason to say, I knew it,
Right.
So
right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody has a different take on that, and I'm just one guy. But so in your career here doing magic, have you ever had one that stands out, a time that you were performing and either the trick just fell apart or somebody called you out on it in front of the audience and almost like a heckler and you had to deal with it? Can you share something like that, like a bad experience working as an illusionist?
Yeah. So, okay. So I guess not so much to me, but I was a part of it. I had the rare opportunity to work in Las Vegas, and I worked in a show called Extreme Magic starring Dirk Arthur. It was at the Tropicana, and he was the last illusionist on the strip with white tigers. And
oh wow,
I was kind of thrown into it by happenstance. My first experience with Dirk was watching this TV show called The World's Greatest Magic. It aired every year on Thanksgiving Day, and in our house it was bigger than the Super Bowl. I knew who David Copperfield was before I knew who Bugs Bunny was in my house. And so,
wow, that's great.
My first exposure to Dirk was this illusion, the appearing helicopter, and he had an empty platform, and he showed it. He walked through it. He covered the whole thing, and then he kind of like a napkin, how you would pull your silverware out of it. You pull on the two sides, and it unrolls. They would do that with the cloth, and they'd whisk the cloth away, and there's a helicopter. Well, I got the lucky joy of resetting that illusion every night. And so, on a few occasions, that particular piece, the helicopter would prematurely appear when it shouldn't have. And Dirk would just come out and say, well, it looks like we're taking the early flight. And so, I mean, I think every magician's gone through it. Even in my own show, there's been times where I messed up a pre-show. And I get to the point where I'm doing that effect and I realize, 2 seconds into it, oh no, I didn't set this up. And you just kind of have to have a contingency plan. Sometimes I'll say, oh, well, I guess the magic is weak in this one or something. And, let me gain your trust back, and I'll move on to the next piece or something like that.
That kind of reminds me of that scene. What's the Hugh Jackman movie? Is it the Prestige?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
When, Christian Bale, his character comes up and deliberately sets that cage for the birds wrong or something and tears into the guy's hands, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's what you're talking about, right? Presetting an illusion or a trick or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was a great movie. I mean, there's, just like in comedy, I'm sure you know the expression, you got to be willing to eat poo, and
right.
So you'll go out and you'll deliver a joke and it will just tank, and you just kind of got to move forward, and hope the next one.
Oh yeah. The house. I mean, if we are entertaining, I must say if we who are entertainers, especially in live entertainment, and I did learn this by watching my folks when I was a kid. I would sit in the back sometimes at the nightclub on like some waitress's lap while she's puffing on a Marlboro. Your parents are really great entertainers, and I would see them have to deal with that kind of stuff. So when we are entertaining people in a live situation, we don't know what's going to happen. You really don't, because it's not something you're filming or taping that you can fix it in the mix or whatever. It's just whatever happens. And it really forces you to up your game, to be able to come back with those quips, to be able to come back. And I love what you just said, regain the audience's trust. Right. I love that.
Right. And, early on I learned that it's not necessarily the tricks you're doing or the things you're saying. You almost have to win them. They have to really enjoy you. And so if they enjoy you, if they can relate to you, that's a huge thing. I try to relate to the audience and break that fourth wall and get them on my side.
Well, you definitely do. I mean, when I've seen you perform, you are connecting with the audience, which is great. Yeah. And I'm sure you have some regular patter or banter that you kind of rely on to pull into your act.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's a list in the back of my mind at all times. For those occasions. And the beauty of it is when you do mess up and then something just comes out, you got to make a mental note. Okay, they laughed at that. They enjoyed that. And now, that they're on my side. And, a lot of times, if I mess up in another show after that or something, I'll use that same line and get that same reaction. And so that's helpful.
I've seen you bring audience members up. I don't know if you've done that a lot when I've seen you, but is that a regular thing that you do, is include audience members?
I try to. It's kind of a ballet. So when I'm writing out a show, I like to open with a grabber. I like to give a talking piece so they can kind of get to know me as a person. And then I like to bring an audience member up and have something happen in their hands. Especially if I look out and I see someone really enjoying the show or something. It's just that it's kind of that take home piece for them. So later they can, tell their friends and family, yeah, it happened right in my hand. And, that's real special. I've seen other performers where they bring people up and they kind of poke fun at them. And, I try not to do that. I try to laugh with them.
I think of people like, the amazing Jonathan, who's no longer with us, but I mean, he seemed to be somebody who would just, double barrel into the audience members,
right.
and I, it was fun. People laugh at that, but if you're the one being attacked, you're not thinking it's so funny. I mean, maybe you do.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And Jonathan actually had a rule too. Like if he was poking fun at anyone, chances are they were part of his staff. And so if he had a friend or at the time his wife, and they were a part of it. And so everybody got to laugh at that, but then he would later expose, ladies and gentlemen, my wife, or, whatever.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a Don Rickles thing where, everybody's open for grabs and he'll just attack everyone.
Right.
It was more of a structured attack.
Yeah.
It was like planned. Yeah. And I guess that kind of makes sense because you don't want people to give you a bad name. Hey, what a jerk Jonathan is.
Right.
Or Brian is, Yeah. I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So you told me off when we were not, off the broadcast, you said something about how you came into this, you weren't planning on going into magic. Is that what you said?
Yeah, being a magic lover, a magician's son, my dad was actually, he had a registered Ringling Brothers clown face. He went through the clown college.
Wow.
And, he was pretty multifaceted. It wasn't always the cool thing. And, it brought a lot of ridicule. I was kind of the odd kid. Especially.
You mean like when kids would say, hey, what does your dad do for a living? And you'd say, well,
yeah,
he's a magician and a clown.
Right, yeah. Right. It wasn't necessarily the cool thing. We had countless, as kids, my sisters and I, we had countless parent-teacher conferences where my dad would have to explain that he wasn't abusive to my mom, that, they were rehearsing for shows when he was sticking her in boxes and running swords through her. And so,
oh my goodness!
So in hindsight, it's kind of funny to laugh at now. We just, it was hard to relate to other kids, because.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was kind of in the same boat. Kids' parents are, working, selling insurance or they're businessmen or something. What's your dad do? Well, at night he goes out and plays the piano and sings. That's what he does? Right. Yeah, that's what he does.
Right.
Anyway, right. But enough about me. Let's talk about you.
I even say in my show, magic got me picked on in elementary school. It got me beat up in high school, and it got me free alcohol all through college.
Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, because if you can do tricks, sure. Now, so I had this sudden flash of an image of you, elementary school or junior high or whatever, and you get a report card with an F on it. But because you're an illusionist, you could change that F into an A with no problem, and nobody would ever figure it out.
Without a doubt. But my mom was a teacher. She homeschooled us, and she knew better.
Oh, okay. So she knew.
Teachers. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes.
So, do you remember your very first trick that you ever presented or performed?
Oh my gosh, yes. So my very first trick, my father and I did this routine, and he called it my shadow. And he would perform a very elegant linking ring routine. If you're not familiar with the linking rings, it's a bunch of stainless steel rings, and they would magically link and unlink. And it was beautiful, beautiful. He called it the serenade of rings.
Ooh, I like that.
So I learned that early on. And as Dad was doing it, I would be right behind him doing the same exact moves.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the second piece. The first piece is a simple coin trick that my dad did, and he actually performed it in a Super Bowl commercial for 7-Up.
Oh, you're kidding. That's pretty cool.
And so I learned that early on, and when I do it, I tell people, this is many years of self-denial went into this trick. So, yeah, and I still do that to this day. I keep my dad's coin on me. In the past, it was the one thing I wanted, and I have that very coin in my wallet, so it's with me every day.
What an incredible keepsake! Just a wonderful memory of your dad. I love that. Is there any kind of trick, a type of trick, if I'm asking this correctly, that is one like your go-to, your favorite? You always want to do this kind of a trick.
Yeah, it's a piece I don't get to do everywhere because it involves a live bird. And it's a piece. It originated. It's called the orange lemon egg canary. And
the what? The what?
The orange lemon egg canary.
Okay.
And nowadays, it's harder to work with canaries and find canaries, so we do it with the parakeet. And what you do, you come out and you have a small table with an orange, a lemon, and an egg, and hanging above it is a small bird cage with a parakeet inside. Okay. And you wrap we call it a foulard. You wrap a foulard around the bird, and you pull it through your fingers, and the bird vanishes. You do the same with the egg and the lemon, but when you get to the orange, it's too big to vanish. So you cut open the orange inside the lemon, cut open the lemon inside an egg, you break the egg in the cage, and the bird reappears. And
wow.
I love the psychology of the whole effect. I actually wrote a college paper about it, and I'm actually a published author on the same effect. And
very cool. I mean, even hearing you describe that trick, I get tingles. It's like, wow, I can see that happening. Like I always love those tricks where somebody cuts open an orange and inside is the card or whatever. And I have my ideas on how that happens, but we're not here to talk about me and my ideas. We're here to talk about you and your amazing ideas. So that's great.
Well, don't worry. If you can hold a secret, so can I.
Oh, I like that. That's great. Is there any trick that you are still shocked that it fools people when you do it?
Yeah, and I think you might have even witnessed this effect. I do a bit where my phone walks me through vanishing a banana.
Yes.
But the whole time the phone is saying bandana. And I correct it several times, and I do the whole effect with the banana. And the method of it's actually really kind of stupid. I call it a crutch because there's no technical ability to the trick. But it's the one that everyone talks about after the show. And what
I love about that trick is it's the same thing with certain types of jokes that I like. There's such an element of, if this is fair to say, I hope it doesn't offend you, like idiotic simplicity. And, it's like, it's so simple and it's so kind of goofy that everybody loves it because it's written so well. It's a well-written, silly joke / trick. And it's the kind of thing that somebody probably looks at and goes, "Hey, I can do that at the next party."
Right.
Whether they can or can't was time will tell. But yeah, I love that trick, that illusion, and it's a crowd pleaser.
Well, there's a rule in magic. They say kiss, and it's keep it simple, stupid. And the simpler the effect, the harder they're going to rack their brain trying to wrap their head around how it's done. And some of the ideas after shows when people come up and say, "Hey, when you did this, I think you had this, this, and this," and it's like it couldn't be any further than the truth, So,
that's so funny how people want to come up and explain to you the tricks you just did, as if they've got it figured out. And I'm sure sometimes they get close, but for a comedian, the closest that ever comes is when you're in a group setting and people don't know what you do, and they say, "What do you?" "Well, I'm a comedian." "Oh, tell us a joke." All right. Well, fine. I'll tell you a joke. It's not going to work so well because we need 100 other people that are all in the audience enjoying what I'm doing. But yeah.
Yeah. I always love when people say, "Oh, you're a musician. Can you do a trick?"
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, the pastor of our church always mixes up those words, musician and magician, and it's kind of funny. I mean, he has no problem making fun of himself for doing that, but when he starts talking and you say that, is he talking about a musician or a magician? Anyway, because those two words are very close.
Yeah.
It's like when I tell people I'm a comedian, they don't usually mistake that for heart surgeon. It's It's just, okay, you're not going to confuse those two. I'm a comedian. Oh, could you remove my spleen? No, I'm not a doctor. Right? Yeah. So, Bryan, got anything coming up you can talk to us about? Shows locally? This will probably hit the airwaves. It'll probably land maybe in the next couple of days. So, anything coming up? January, February? Shows coming up?
It's this is a stagnant time of year. Christmas season's real busy, as is Halloween. I don't really have anything in the hatch as we speak. A lot of times, and especially now, I'm kind of jumping back into it. I made a promise to my wife when my son was born that I'd shelve magic, because at the time, I was gone quite a bit. And I was doing magic quite often. And, now that my kids are older and my wife and I, we've been married as long as we have, she's kind of to the point where, please take off for the weekend.
If you could leave, that would be great.
Yeah. So I'm kind of
I'll handle the dishes. I'll mow the lawn. You just go do your little magic skits. Go do that. Yeah.
You sound just like her.
Oh, do I? That's good.
Yeah.
So, that's funny.
Yeah. So nothing in the hatch as we speak. I'm using this time to kind of develop a whole new show.
Oh, really? Cool.
And put together some new stuff. There's some stuff I want to test. So, I'm going to probably hit up, you guys, the local comedy scene, and see if you guys have anything where I can go out and kind of test some new material. So do you basically promote yourself, or do you have an agent? How's that work? I had an agent for about 2 years, and I found that we could equally promote the show,
Right.
Especially with me, I'm what you would consider a weekend warrior. This isn't my full-time job. I'm a fire alarm technician, and so I passively fight fire. But I like to get out and do the weekend gigs, and we're looking to do a summer tour. A friend of mine down in Vallejo, and he brings a whole different style of magic. And we're kind of talking about maybe doing a grassroots tour and taking it into the little mountain communities around us here.
What a fun idea. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I know people would be thrilled to see you. It's having seen your act. For those of you who don't know Bryan, you should check him out. Go look him up. And I'm sure you have some clips out there maybe people could see.
Yeah, I've got some really old clips on YouTube. I need to get with it and update things and probably make myself a little more known on social media.
It's hard to keep up with that. And I've got old clips too. And I don't cringe when I see them, but I think, yikes, if they hire me from that, they're going to think, is your dad showing up? We came here to do our act. So I've had to kind of update that stuff too. But so how do people find you?
Right now they could visit my website. It's BryanGilles.com. It's Bryan with a Y, and Gilles is GILLES.com. Just know all the photos were from 2016, so I'm quite a bit heavier and quite a bit older. So that's in the works as well.
Well, that's a great way to sell yourself there. That's good. I'm older now and fatter now. So that's good. That looks great on a resume.
Amen.
Well, I'm with you. Like 2025 is once again, I'm looking around and thinking, do I want to join a gym or do I want another cupcake or where am I at in life? What do I want to do with this? So the best way to reach you is BryanGilles.com.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Bryan, I sure appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and I'm so glad you do what you do with a clean bent to it. And if you are a church out there looking to entertain your church, Bryan is a great guy to bring and have it at your next event. I'm sure he's great for family events, for maybe annual meetings, fundraising events, all sorts of things where you just want to bring somebody in to entertain all ages. Maybe you have a family camp coming up in the summer or something like that. Maybe even a kids party. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably putting words in your mouth there, but I'm sure if somebody had a kids party and they said, Bryan, can you come and perform? You're not going to say, no, don't ever call me again. You're going to say, I'd love to come and perform.
My office needs drywall. So, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's the top of your promo. I like that. My office needs drywall. That's good. Yeah. You're always right there with that major headline that sells you. My office needs headline, or my office needs drywall. I want to get thinner and I want to get younger, but you can't do much about the younger part. I think you're kind of stuck with that.
Always young at heart.
I like that. Young at heart. Cool. Well, Bryan, it's been so great being with you. Any last words you want to share with us before I kick you out and say, go learn a trick or something?
Oh, gosh. For all the listeners, just, believe in the impossible, believe in yourself, and believe, I guess.
That's good. You just gave us a bumper sticker for 2025. I like that. That's good. All right, Bryan. Well, thanks for being with us. It's been great having you here. Everybody from where you are, give Bryan a big round of applause. I'm sure he'll hear it. Applause to Bryan for being here with us. That's great. And Bryan, it's been so great having you with us.
Oh, appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode with magician and illusionist Bryan Gilles. Once again, you can find him at BryanGilles.com. BryanGilles.com. Great for your upcoming events. You need to see his act and bring him to your next event. And remember, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast from. We have more great episodes coming up in this second season, and I'm looking forward to having you here with me. Please tell your friends about it. So thank you for being with us today. My name is Dan McGowan. This is Just Pure Laughs. See you next time.